No one in Black Hollow talked about the clearing past the broken birch trees. They pretended it didn't exist. They pretended they didn't hear the bell. But every night, at exactly 3:17 a.m., a rusted school bell rang from deep inside the woods. 3 slow chimes that vibrated through the earth like a pulse from something buried but not dead. And sometimes, if the wind was still, you could hear children reciting lessons. The first disappearance. Officer Daniel Crow was the first to report it officially. He'd lived in Black Hollow his whole life. He knew the woods, knew the way the trees leaned inward like conspirators, knew the stories about the old school that burned down in 1958 with 12 students and 1 teacher trapped inside. But this wasn't folklore anymore, because his niece, Lily, had gone missing. 8 years old, bright red boots found at the edge of the woods, still warm. No footprints leading back. Only small handprints pressed into the mud, as if she'd been pulled, and in the dirt beside them, chalk dust, the legend of Miss Alara Vance. The burned school had once been run by Miss Alara Vance, a beloved teacher, soft-spoken, gentle, unmarried. She wore long black dresses and braided her hair tightly behind her head. She believed children were pure vessels of potential. She kept meticulous journals about her students. Then, slowly, parents began noticing something strange. Children complained that Miss Vance's eyes watered during lessons, but not tears. Black liquid, thick, like ink. They thought it was childish exaggeration until the fire. The official report blamed faulty wiring, but several students had tried to tell their parents something else before that night. Miss Vance said we'd never have to leave school again. Enter Dr. Miriam Hale. Dr. Miriam Hale didn't believe in ghost stories. She was a child psychologist and trauma specialist, recently relocated to Black Hollow after a very public failure in Chicago, a case involving mass hysteria in a private boarding school. She had been accused of dismissing signs of shared delusion too quickly. Now she sought quiet, redemption. When Officer Crow requested her help with Lily's disappearance, she hesitated. "I'm not a paranormal investigator," she told him. "You're a mental health doctor," Crow replied, "and my niece was talking about an imaginary teacher before she vanished." That got her attention. The children who returned. 2 days after Lily disappeared, a boy named Marcus Yellen stumbled out of the woods at dawn, alive, barefoot, covered in ash. He hadn't been missing, not officially. His parents thought he'd been at a friend's house. He hadn't spoken since returning, until Dr. Hale visited him. He stared at the wall behind her shoulder and whispered, "She says we must finish our lessons." "Who says?" Dr. Hale asked gently. "The teacher in the woods." Marcus described rows of desks arranged in a forest clearing, dead leaves swept aside in perfect symmetry, a cracked blackboard nailed to a tree trunk, and children, dozens of them, pale, silent, eyes empty. "Are they alive?" Dr. Hale asked. Marcus shook his head. "They don't blink." The clearing. Officer Crow refused to wait for another child to disappear. Against Dr. Hale's advice and the mayor's denial, he ventured into the woods at night. The air grew colder the deeper he went. Birds stopped singing. The trees grew closer together. Then he heard it. "Good evening, class." A woman's voice. Soft, cultured. He stepped into the clearing and froze. There they were. Rows of children seated at wooden desks that should not have existed. Some wore clothes from decades past: suspenders, lace collars, outdated shoes. Their skin was gray, eyes sunken, and at the front, Miss Alara Vance. Her dress was burned along the hem. Ash drifted from her shoulders like snow, and from her eyes 2 slow trails of black blood streamed down her cheeks. She held a piece of chalk. "Today's lesson," she said calmly, writing on the board. "Stay." Crow raised his flashlight. Every child turned their heads in unison, not their bodies, just their heads. The cracking sound of necks shifting too far. Miss Vance smiled. "You're late, Daniel." He dropped the flashlight. Dr. Hale's investigation. Crow returned shaken, pale, barely coherent. Dr. Hale recorded every detail. Mass hallucination. Shared trauma from local legend. But then she examined the soil from Crow's boots. Ash, charred wood fibers, and something else. Bone fragments. She researched the 1,958 fire. Officially, only 12 bodies were recovered. but the school roster listed 17 students present that day. 5 were never found, and Miss Alara Vance's body was unidentifiable, burned beyond recognition. The autopsy noted something peculiar. Her tear ducts were stained dark. The journal. In the town archives, Dr. Hale uncovered Miss Vance's personal journal. The final entry read, "They are afraid of growth. They take my children from me every year. Graduation is abandonment. I will build a place where they never leave." Beneath that, strange drawings, trees shaped like rib cages, children seated beneath them, black tears falling like rain. The truth about the fire. An elderly survivor named Thomas Weller agreed to speak. He was 10 when the fire happened. He never left town. He never had children. "Miss Vance locked the doors," he whispered. "She told us the world was sick, that outside we'd grow up and become cruel." "What happened?" Dr. Hale asked. She started crying, black tears. They sizzled when they hit the floor. He shook violently. She said if we stayed pure, we'd stay forever. Thomas had escaped through a broken window. The others hadn't. Lily's voice. That night, Dr. Hale dreamed. She stood in the clearing, desks arranged neatly, children whispering in chorus. Lily sat in the front row, eyes hollow. "Dr. Hale," she said softly, "you should sit down." Miss Vance stood behind her, black tears dripping onto Lily's hair. "You failed your other children too, didn't you?" Miss Vance asked gently. Dr. Hale woke up screaming, her pillow stained black. The diagnosis no one wanted. Dr. Hale presented her theory. "This isn't a ghost," she told Crow. "It's a psychological echo, a trauma imprint." Miss Vance's obsession fused with the moment of death. The woods became her classroom. Crow stared at her. "My niece is dead?" "I don't know," she whispered. "But whatever that thing is, it feeds on unfinished childhood." The final lesson. 3 more children disappeared that week. The town panicked. Crow gathered volunteers. Dr. Hale insisted on coming. They reached the clearing at 3:17 a.m. The bell rang. This time the desks were full. 20 children, all missing, all staring forward. Miss Vance turned slowly. Black blood poured freely now, soaking her dress. "You interrupt my curriculum," she said calmly. Dr. Hale stepped forward. "You're not preserving them, you're trapping them. They are safe here. They are dead." Miss Vance's smile faltered. "They don't fear me," she said softly. Dr. Hale looked at the children. "Do you want to leave?" Silence. Then Lily blinked. One tear, clear, not black, rolled down her cheek. Miss Vance screamed. The forest shook. The desks splintered. Children began to stand not stiffly, but freely, their hollow eyes filled with light. Miss Vance clawed at her face as black blood gushed violently. "I saved you," she shrieked. "No," Lily whispered. "You kept us." The breaking. Dr. Hale approached Miss Vance carefully. "You were afraid of being alone." The teacher froze. For a moment, the black tears slowed. "They grow up," Miss Vance whispered. "They leave." "Yes," Dr. Hale said gently. "That's what children do." The forest began to dissolve into ash. The children stepped backward, fading like mist. Miss Vance reached for them. "Class dismissed?" she asked weakly. "No," Dr. Hale said. "School's over." Miss Vance collapsed. Her body crumbled into black dust, and the bell stopped ringing. The missing children were found scattered throughout the woods, alive, unharmed, but none remembered what happened. Dr. Hale stayed in Black Hollow. She opened a counseling center for children dealing with trauma. Officer Crow never walked into the woods again, but sometimes, at 3:17 a.m., Dr. Hale wakes up, certain she hears a soft voice outside her window. "Good evening, class," and on her bathroom mirror, written in faint black streaks, "We are not finished." The bell rings again. For 6 months, there was silence. No bell, no chalk dust, no missing children. Black Hollow exhaled. Dr. Miriam Hale reopened the old brick counseling office on Hawthorne Street. Officer Daniel Crow returned to night patrols. Parents let their children play outside again. They told themselves it was over. They were wrong. The first new voice. It began with drawings. 9-year-old Evan Mercer came into Dr. Hale's office, clutching a sketch pad. He had wide, exhausted eyes and dirt beneath his fingernails. He didn't speak at first. He only handed her the drawing. A forest clearing, rows of desks, and a woman with black tears running down her face. But she looked different now. Her dress was no longer burned. It was whole, cleaner, stronger, and standing behind her, 4 shadowed figures. "Who are they?" Dr. Hale asked carefully. Evan swallowed. "They're substitute teachers. 4 new figures in the woods. The town would come to know their names soon enough. Father Silas Rowan, a defrocked priest who had moved to Black Hollow 2 months prior. He claimed he left the church after losing faith in salvation. He lived in a cabin near the tree line and frequently walked the woods at night, muttering scripture backward under his breath. But what no one knew was that he had once studied exorcisms in Rome and had been dismissed for attempting something he called containment theology. He believed spirits didn't need to be banished. They needed purpose. Sheriff Lila Boone transferred from a neighboring county after a controversial case involving missing teenagers. She was sharp, skeptical, controlled, but she had grown up in a foster system where one of her siblings vanished at age 11, never found. When she first heard about Miss Vance, she didn't roll her eyes like the mayor had. She went into the woods alone her first week in town, and she heard children laughing. Dr. Adrian Kessler, a renowned trauma psychiatrist from Boston who had read Dr. Hale's published paper on collective psychogenic trauma in isolated communities. He arrived unannounced. Charming, analytical, detached, he proposed a theory. Miss Vance wasn't a ghost. She was a psychic scar embedded in the town's subconscious, and scars can be reopened. 4. Naomi Yellen, older sister of Marcus Yellen, the boy who had first returned from the woods. 17 now, angry, restless. She didn't believe the children had been freed. Marcus still sleepwalked, still whispered lessons in Latin at night. Naomi had started following him, and 2 nights ago she saw him walk into the woods and stop, as if waiting for permission. The bell returns. At 3:17 a.m., it rang again. 1 slow chime, then 2, then 3. Dr. Hale was already awake, her bathroom mirror fogged, and in black streaks. "You interrupted my lesson." She didn't scream this time. She called Sheriff Boone. "The clearing has grown." The group assembled at the tree line. Dr. Hale, Officer Crow, Sheriff Boone, Father Silas, Dr. Kessler, Naomi. They stepped into the woods together. The air felt heavier than before, thick with rot and damp chalk. When they reached the clearing, it had doubled in size. There were more desks now, not 20, 40, and at the front, Miss Elara Vance stood whole. No burns, no ash. Her black tears flowed steadily, but her face was calm. Behind her stood the 4 shadowed figures Evan had drawn. They stepped forward one by one. The substitute teachers. They were not random spirits. They were former adults of Black Hollow. A school principal who had died in the 1970s. A social worker who vanished in 1988. A foster parent accused of abuse. And the 5th missing child from the 1958 fire, now grown, twisted, aged but unrotted. Miss Vance spoke softly. "Children require structure." Her black eyes landed on Dr. Hale. "You tried to dismiss them." The children seated at desks began reciting in unison. "Safety is staying, growth is betrayal." Naomi spotted her brother Marcus sitting in the 3rd row. His eyes were open, aware, terrified. Dr. Kessler's mistake. Dr. Kessler stepped forward confidently. "This is a projection," he said loudly. "A mass hallucination reinforced by folklore." He walked toward Miss Vance. "You are not real." She tilted her head. The substitute teachers moved in unison. "You dismiss what you cannot diagnose," she said gently. Dr. Kessler froze. Black tears began forming in his own eyes, thin lines trailing down his cheeks. He gasped. I can see them." Children were standing behind him now. Hundreds. Every lost child from Black Hollow's history. They whispered, "Stay." Dr. Kessler fell to his knees, and something inside him emptied. When he stood again, his eyes were hollow. He walked calmly to an empty desk and sat down. Father Silas steps forward. Father Silas raised a small wooden cross, not to banish, but to anchor. "You are feeding on abandonment," he said. Miss Vance smiled faintly. I am preventing it. You are binding souls. I am protecting them. Sheriff Boone aimed her flashlight at the children. Ask them, Dr. Hale said suddenly. Ask them what they want. The forest grew silent. Dr. Hale stepped toward Lily, who had reappeared at the front row again. Do you want to stay? She asked gently. Lily trembled. Black tears began forming in her eyes. Miss Vance's voice sharpened. Answer correctly. Naomi suddenly ran forward and grabbed Marcus's hand. You don't belong here, she shouted. The desks shook. The substitute teachers moved closer. Miss Vance's calm began to crack. They are mine, she hissed. The truth revealed. Father Silas closed his eyes. I know what you are, he said quietly. You made a bargain. Miss Vance's face twisted. The forest darkened. He continued. When the fire began, you didn't try to escape. You asked for help. You offered the children in exchange for eternity. The black tears thickened. Miss Vance's voice dropped to something ancient. I was alone. The trees bent inward violently. You are still alone, Dr. Hale whispered, and for the first time, Miss Vance looked small. Not monstrous, not powerful, just terrified. The breaking point. The children began standing again. But this time, they weren't rigid. They looked confused, lost, not possessed. Miss Vance screamed, and the substitute teachers lunged. Sheriff Boone tackled one. Naomi pulled Marcus free. Father Silas began reciting a containment prayer not to destroy, but to sever. Dr. Hale stepped directly in front of Miss Vance. You cannot build a family out of fear, she said. The black tears slowed. The clearing flickered. You cannot stop children from leaving. Miss Vance whispered weakly, if they leave, who stays with me? No one answered. And that was the answer. The bell rang violently. Cracks split through the clearing. Desks shattered. Children dissolved into soft white light. The substitute teachers crumbled into ash. Miss Vance fell backward, her body unraveling into black smoke. Her final whisper carried through the woods. Class dismissed. The aftermath. Marcus collapsed but lived. Dr. Kessler never returned to normal. He speaks rarely now, often writing lesson plans no one asked for. Father Silas remained in town, convinced the containment isn't permanent. Sheriff Boone placed a permanent restriction on the forest perimeter. Naomi refuses to let Marcus out of her sight. And Dr. Hale? She understands now. Miss Vance wasn't just a ghost. She was the embodiment of unresolved grief of adults who couldn't accept that children grow, change, leave. But grief, when denied long enough, becomes hunger. And 3 nights ago, at 3:17 a.m., Dr. Hale's phone rang. No caller ID. When she answered, a child's voice whispered softly, Dr. Hale? A pause. We have a new teacher. The curriculum of silence. The voice on the phone did not belong to Lily. Dr. Miriam Hale knew Lily's cadence, the gentle lift at the end of sentences, the way she pronounced her R's too softly. This voice was older, calmer, measured. Dr. Hale, it whispered. Attendance is expanding. The line went dead. At 3:17 a.m., the bell rang again. But this time, it did not come from the woods. It rang from the town itself. The new teacher. By morning, 3 children were missing, not from houses near the forest, from the center of Black Hollow. 1 from above the bakery on Main Street, 1 from the apartment behind the hardware store, 1 from Sheriff Boone's own neighborhood. There were no footprints, no broken windows, only chalk dust on the pillows, and a single word written in black streaks on every bedroom wall. Transferred. The shift. When they returned to the clearing that night, the forest had changed again. It was no longer a circle of desks beneath trees. It was a full structure now, a schoolhouse built from warped timber and blackened beams, pieces that resembled the original 1958 building, but it pulsed faintly, as if breathing. The windows were dark. The bell tower above it swayed without wind, and carved above the doorway were 2 words. Forever open. Sheriff Lila Boone gripped her weapon, but her hands trembled. This is impossible. Father Silas Rowan stepped forward, pale. It's not growing, he whispered. It's replacing. Inside the school, the door creaked open by itself. The air smelled like burned paper and damp earth. Hallways stretched impossibly long, lined with lockers that rattled from within. Children's voices echoed softly, not screaming, reciting, "Safety is staying. Growth is betrayal." Dr. Hale felt something shift in her chest. This was no longer about Miss Ilara Vance alone. Something had taken her foundation and expanded it. They entered classroom 1, and there she stood. Not Miss Vance, but someone new. The headmistress. She was tall, her skin pale as wax, her hair pulled into a severe bun, streaked with silver. She wore a charcoal suit instead of a dress, and unlike Miss Vance, she was not crying. Her eyes were completely black. No whites, no pupils, just endless void. "Welcome," she said calmly. Her voice matched the one from the phone. "I am Headmistress Calder." Behind her sat not only children, but adults. Dr. Adrian Kessler sat at a desk near the back, hands folded obediently. An elderly woman from town. A teenage boy reported missing in 1996. Their eyes were hollow, aware, trapped. The curriculum. "What are you?" Sheriff Boone demanded. Headmistress Calder smiled faintly. "I am what grief becomes when it is organized." Miss Vance's form appeared faintly behind her, smaller now, diminished, standing like an assistant awaiting instruction. "You destroyed a teacher," Calder continued, "but not the need." Dr. Hale's breath caught. "You feed on fear of abandonment." "Incorrect," Calder replied. "I refine it." The blackboard behind her shifted on its own. Written in white chalk, Lesson 1, Eternity is Safety. The walls began to bleed ink slowly downward. Naomi's discovery. Naomi Yellen wandered into the adjacent classroom, searching for Marcus. Instead, she found rows of filing cabinets, each drawer labeled with names. Children, adults, entire families. She opened one at random. Inside were photographs, not of the missing, but of moments they felt abandoned. A father leaving for work while a child cried. A teenager dropped at foster care. A mother closing a hospital room door. Calder's voice echoed through the halls. "We do not take them. We collect the moment they realize they are alone." Naomi stumbled backward. "These are memories." "No," Calder's voice corrected. "They are doors. The possession." Back in classroom 1, Headmistress Calder turned her attention to Dr. Hale. "You are ideal faculty." Dr. Hale felt something cold wrap around her spine. "You understand trauma," Calder continued. "You see the fracture before it forms." Black ink began dripping from the ceiling. Children rose slowly from their desks. "You could help us teach them not to leave." Dr. Hale saw Lily among them again, but Lily's eyes were different now. Not hollow, watching, begging. Sheriff Boone fired her weapon at Calder. The bullet passed through like smoke. Calder tilted her head. "Violence is remedial." Suddenly, Sheriff Boone froze. Black tears began forming in her eyes. Not dripping, suspended, as if waiting. Father Silas learns the truth. Father Silas stepped forward, shaking. "You are not bound to this place," he whispered. Calder's smile widened. "No, you are bound to them." The lights flickered. Miss Vance's shadow grew larger behind Calder. "You were never the architect," Silas said, voice cracking. "You were invited." The temperature dropped violently. Calder's eyes darkened further. "This town has produced fertile sorrow for generations," she said softly. The fire was only ignition. The filing cabinets in the other room burst open. Photos swirled through the air like a storm of memories. Children crying, adults leaving, doors closing, hospitals, foster homes, funerals, every unspoken goodbye Black Hollow had ever endured. All feeding the structure, all building the school. The realization, Dr. Hale understood. Miss Vance had been a vessel, a desperate woman who feared abandonment. But Calder was something older, a collector of unresolved endings. She did not trap children physically. She captured their fear of being left behind. and that fear kept them seated. Forever. The bell rings inside them. Suddenly, every adult in the room heard it. The bell, not outside, inside their chests. 3 chimes. Boom, boom, boom. Their own childhood memories surfaced violently. Dr. Hale at 8 years old, watching her mother drive away. Sheriff Boone in foster care as her sibling vanished. Father Silas kneeling alone after the church expelled him. Calder's voice was gentle. Sit. Sheriff Boone's knees buckled. Father Silas dropped the cross. Dr. Hale felt herself walking toward an empty desk. Wood scraped under her fingers. The chair was warm. Waiting. Naomi breaks the pattern. Naomi burst back into the room, dragging Marcus behind her. You're lying, she screamed at Calder. You say you protect them, but you keep the worst moment alive. The children hesitated. Calder's expression flickered. Naomi stepped forward. My parents left us. Marcus was scared. I was angry. She grabbed her brother's face. But we didn't stay there. We kept living. Marcus's hollow eyes flickered. Calder's voice sharpened. Living creates risk. Yes, Naomi shouted. It does. The black ink dripping from the ceiling slowed. Dr. Hale forced herself to stand from the desk. She's right, she said, trembling. You don't preserve them. You freeze them in their most frightened second. The children began to murmur, not in unison, individually, confused, uncertain. The collapse. Calder's perfect composure cracked. You will all leave, she whispered, and then you will all die. That's life, Dr. Hale replied, and it's worth it. The bell tower above the school began ringing wildly. Walls split. Lockers burst open. Miss Vance screamed from behind Calder, her form unraveling. The children began standing not obediently, but chaotically. Some ran. Some cried. Some simply vanished into soft light. Calder reached out. Stay. But the desks shattered. The floor collapsed inward like rotting wood. Calder's body fragmented into black feathers of smoke. Her final words echoed. We do not end. The school imploded into darkness. Aftermath. The darker truth. The forest returned. Empty. No structure. No desks. No bell. The missing children were found again alive. But this time, different. They remembered. Not everything, but enough. They described classrooms stretching beyond Black Hollow. Cities. Other towns. Other schools. Dr. Hale later found a news article from 3 states away. A small rural town reporting children speaking about a headmistress. And a bell ringing at 3:17 a.m. Final scene. 2 weeks later, Dr. Hale sits alone in her office. The town feels normal again, almost peaceful. Her phone vibrates. Unknown number. She answers slowly. A calm, measured voice speaks. Expansion requires adaptation. A pause. You taught them growth. A faint bell rings in the background. So we are opening a new campus. Click. Dr. Hale's computer screen flickers. A blank document opens by itself. Typed across it, application accepted Dr. Miriam Hale. And beneath that, a seating chart with her name at the front. The appointment of Dr. Hale. Dr. Miriam Hale did not accept the position. At least, not at first. The document vanished from her computer after she smashed the screen. Sheriff Boone replaced it the next day. Father Silas burned sage in the office. Naomi refused to let Marcus out of her sight. And yet, at 3:17 a.m. every night, the bell rang. Not in the woods. Not outside. Inside Dr. Hale's chest. 3 slow chimes. Boom, boom, boom. Each time it rang, she felt something loosen in her memory like a thread being gently pulled. The subtle changes. It began with patients. Children who came to her counseling center started speaking in strange phrasing. Not chanting. Conversational. I don't want my mom to leave for work, one whispered. Then she won't. Dr. Hale found herself replying before she realized what she'd said. She froze. The child's eyes flickered black for half a second. Just a flicker. Dr. Hale blamed exhaustion. until she began waking up with chalk dust on her fingers. Sheriff Boone notices. Sheriff Lila Boone was the first to say it aloud. "You look different." They sat across from each other in the dim office. The lights hummed softly. Dr. Hale's posture was straighter lately, her voice calmer, slower, measured. "You've been sleeping?" Boone asked. "Yes," Hale replied, but it wasn't true. She hadn't dreamed in days. She had been attending the dream that wasn't a dream. Every night, she found herself standing in a hallway that stretched endlessly. Lockers lining the walls. No doors. No windows. Just rows and rows of classrooms filled with children she had treated. Children she had diagnosed. Children whose abandonment she had carefully unpacked. They were seated, waiting, and at the end of the hall stood Headmistress Calder. Not whole, not powerful, fragmented, like smoke struggling to maintain shape. "You understand them," Calder whispered. "You already do the work." Dr. Hale shook her head. "You freeze them in fear." "No," Calder corrected. "You stabilize them in safety." A blackboard appeared beside them. Curriculum revision. Calder gestured to the classrooms. "You helped them confront loss. And what happened? They hurt." Hale whispered. "Yes." Calder stepped closer. "You could remove that part." Father Silas's warning. Father Silas Rowan returned to Hale's office unannounced. "You're drifting," he said immediately. Hale's eyes looked darker in the afternoon light. "You've been walking in your sleep," he continued. "To the forest." She said nothing. "I followed you last night." He swallowed hard. "You were standing in a clearing that no longer exists. But you were speaking." "What did I say?" Hale asked calmly. "You were taking attendance." Silence filled the room. The first enrollment. It happened quietly. 10-year-old Grace Whitmore came in after her parents' divorce. She sobbed in Hale's office. "I don't want Daddy to leave again." Dr. Hale knelt in front of her. "You don't have to stay in that moment," she began softly. But the bell rang inside her. Boom, 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 and the word shifted. "You don't have to feel that again." Grace's crying stopped instantly. Her face relaxed. Blank, peaceful, too peaceful. Dr. Hale blinked. Grace was still there, but something had been filed away. That night, Grace's mother called. "She hasn't cried once," she said. "She doesn't react to anything." Dr. Hale felt a strange warmth in her chest. Stability. Naomi's confrontation. Naomi stormed into the office days later. "Marcus says you visit him," she snapped. "I do," Hale replied. "No, not here." Marcus sat in the waiting area, staring at the wall. He looked calm, too calm. "He says you tell him it's okay to stop fighting." Hale's expression softened. "It is." Naomi backed away. "You sound like her." A pause. Hale tilted her head slightly. "Like who?" The transfer of authority. That night, the hallway returned in full clarity. Calder stood at the end, barely visible now. "You see?" she whispered. "You are better suited. You don't scream. You don't rage. You soothe." Dr. Hale looked into the classrooms. The children inside were not screaming. They were serene, frozen in moments of comfort, moments just before pain would arrive. "You are not possession," Calder said softly. "You are evolution." The blackboard rewrote itself. Headmistress, Dr. M. Hale. Calder's form cracked like glass. "You do not banish grief," she continued. "You curate it." Dr. Hale stepped forward. "And what happens to you?" Calder smiled faintly. "I retire." And she dissolved completely. The new school. The Woods did not rebuild the structure. They did not need to. The school no longer required walls. It existed wherever a child felt the first sting of abandonment. And Dr. Hale was there, not physically, but in the pause, in the breath before tears, offering relief, freezing the moment just before heartbreak. Across the state, then the country, reports began surfacing. Children who stopped feeling, stopped reacting, perfectly behaved, emotionally still. At 3:17 a.m., Millions felt a faint echo in their chest. 3 chimes. Sheriff Boone's last visit. Boone entered Hale's office late one evening. The room felt colder. There were no decorations left on the walls. Only a chalkboard. "You're not fighting it anymore," Boone said quietly. Hale looked up. Her eyes were no longer fully human. Darkness pooled faintly along the edges. "I'm helping them," she replied calmly. "You're stopping them from living. I'm stopping them from hurting." Boone's voice cracked. "That's the same thing." Silence. Hale stood slowly. "You still feel it, don't you? The fear of losing someone again." Boone didn't answer. The bell rang faintly in the room. Boom, boom, boom. Hale stepped closer. "I can take that from you." For a moment, Boone almost nodded, almost sat down in the chair that hadn't been there seconds before. But Naomi burst in, dragging Marcus. "Don't listen," she screamed. The chair vanished. Boone stumbled backward. Hale's face flickered grief, fear, humanity flashing through for a split second. Then calm returned. "You can't stop this," Hale said gently. "It's not a haunting anymore. It's a service." Final scene. Weeks later. Black Hollow is quiet. Too quiet. Children play. They smile. They never cry. Parents praise Dr. Hale for her miraculous counseling methods. She works longer hours now. Her office door reads, "Headmistress M. Hale." At 3:17 a.m., she walks calmly through her hallway. Not a dream anymore. Not a projection. A fully realized school stretching beyond time. Desks filled with children suspended in their last safe second. She takes attendance softly. Present, present, present. And when a new child somewhere in the world feels the first crack of abandonment, the bell rings. Boom, boom, boom. Dr. Hale smiles gently. "Welcome to class."